This is The View from Israel. I'm Barry Shaw. I'm talking, of course, about Israel at war. I think as you're finding, as you're watching your TV screen, or even meeting it on your streets of your major cities, there's an information war going on, as well as the physical war we've got over here. And it seems to me, from my distance here in Israel, that we seem to be losing that war. The other side have a strong narrative. It's a lie, of course, plenty of lies, but it comes over very strong and very emotionally. And I felt it was important this morning to give you the information in which to counter that. Here are the facts. In the 2006 Palestinian national election, that was the last time they had a Palestinian election, which meant that all the Palestinians voted. Hamas won, which means the majority of Palestinians back in 2006 preferred Hamas to anybody else. That's 17 years ago. I know. What about today? I'll give you three some bare facts you won't know about. 2 months ago, the students at Birzeit University overwhelmingly elected a Hamas body to represent them in the university. Now, I suppose if you don't know where Birzeit is, you would assume it's in the Gaza Strip. But it's not. It's 5 miles, only 5 miles north of Ramallah. What's so significant about that? Well, Ramallah is the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority, headed by Mahmoud Abbas, who is unpopular. And as I said, he's been unpopular since 2006 when he lost the election. Incidentally, what happened when he lost the election? He tried to assert control over Gaza, which Israel had given up on behalf to giving it to the Palestinians, and there was a civil war. In other words, when Palestinians are not killing Jews, they're killing each other. But let's get back to the facts. September, that's last month, the Palestine Center for Polls and Surveys, that's a Palestinian NGO, not an Israeli one, conducted a poll. And the message is, who would Palestinians vote for if there was an election then in September? This was month before the Hamas massacre of Jews. And the result was that Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of the Hamas party, 58%. Mahmoud Abbas for the also peaceful Fatah PLO Palestinian Authority, only 37%. That's a majority for Hamas a month before they started their slaughter. By the way, in Gaza, these figures for Hamas are certainly higher. In the poll also, 78% of Palestinians, according to this poll, 78% wanted Mahmoud Abbas to resign. The majority are Hamas. So Palestine is Hamas and Hamas is Palestine. And don't let them fool you that these people really don't like Hamas, but unfortunately they're getting killed by Israelis. We avoid killing innocent people. We're after the Hamas terrorists wherever they're hiding. But the people on the street support them. The people who are in Gaza City were warned for a week, every day, several times a day, to leave Gaza because that's where we're targeting. Head south. Most did. A lot of people stayed. Ask yourself why they stayed. It's because either they're in Hamas, family of Hamas, sympathetic to Hamas, would like to help them in, let's say, a non-military way. So collateral damage, yes, we'll avoid that. Deliberately targeting civilians, yes, we'll try and do that. But I want you to know and be certain that what the media will tell you is not true. These are some of the hard facts, and we're telling you. Now, I want to put another point of what the Palestinians, no matter whether it's Hamas or PLO, produced in the 30 years since the Oslo Accords. What was the Oslo Accords? It was the peace arrangement between us and the Palestinians because we were told by the international community that all the Palestinians wanted was peace. And if we give them territory, we would get peace and they would have peace and everybody would be happy. And therefore also, as I said, that when it was signed on the White House lawn, the Palestinians were represented by Yasser Arafat. So I'm coming on to the next thing. A fact you need to know. This is the information you need to spread. Let me go through the list with you, name by name. Yasser Arafat was a terrorist before he won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he continued to be a terrorist even after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He promised us when he got that Peace Prize that he would deliver Israel the peace of the brave. He delivered us peace of the grave. I know because I became involved in the Netanya terror victims when his terrorists, after he received the Peace Prize, slaughtered us with car bombings, shootings, and several suicide bombs, one of which almost killed my wife. Mahmoud Abbas is now the leader of the Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas is a terrorist. He studied Holocaust denial when he was at Moscow University, and all he does is really preach to the hatred of Jews. Anybody who buys land, Arab who sells land to a Jew, will be executed. Jews have to be eradicated. Palestine is a land from the river to the sea. He is a terrorist. He pays terrorists. He has a pay-to-slave policy, warding terrorists who kill Jews. Khaled Mashal, the head of Hamas, a terrorist organization. Ismail Haniyeh, a Hamas leader in Doha, also supporting and promoting the murder of Jews. Marwan Barghouti is a Palestinian belonging to the Fatah PLO movement, and he is serving 5 life sentences for the mass murder of Jews. Actually, if people don't want Khaled Mashal or Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leaders, instead of Mahmoud Abbas, they prefer Marwan Barghouti, who, again, I repeat, is sitting in 5 life sentences for the mass murder of Jews. Yahya Sinwar, Hamas leader in Gaza, terrorist. Mahmoud Sahar, terrorist. Ahmed Yassin, who was a spiritual leader of the Palestine Islamic movement supporting the murder of Jews, terrorist. Mohammed Def, the chief operator of the Hamas killing machine in Gaza, terrorist. The PLO organization is a terrorist organization. The PLFP, which is the Palestine Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which means Palestine from the river to the sea, I'm sure it's a motto you've heard, terrorist. Hamas, terrorist. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, terrorist. And then there are all sorts of minor groups called DLFP, terrorist. PPP, terrorist. PPSF, also terrorist. And this list doesn't include the hundreds of terror operatives that are operating in what they call either the West Bank, we call Judah and Samaria, or in Gaza, who are unaffiliated or have their own minor gangs of terrorists. Because I wrote a book in 2011 called Israel Reclaiming the Narrative. And let me start off by saying to you, or telling you, what the open statement is. This book has been formulated as I witnessed and experienced the struggle of the Jewish state of Israel to establish itself and become accepted in the region and the world. And much of the criticism, demonization, delegitimization, violence, war, terror that have been wrought against this tiny country was totally unnecessary and unjustified. And I go on in the preface, and this is where you come in. War is a dirty business, and information war is a dirty extension of this physical warfare. But it's one you have to engage in, because if we don't, we may win the war and lose the information war. And that would also be a disaster. And strange enough, I predicted something else, because a few years later, in 2015, I wrote another book to offset the information war against us by the BDS movement, which is all steeped in anti-Semitism. I wanted to put a ring around the terrorism of the Palestinians, whether it comes from Mahmoud Abbas or it comes from Hamas in Gaza, and the anti-Semitism that's involved in that, and the anti-Semitism that you're seeing now today on your streets, in your campuses. But this is what I wrote as the introduction of my book of Fighting Hamas, BDS, and Anti-Semitism. When an anti-Israel obsession is linked to Jew hatred, this inevitably must explode into violence and act of terrorism. I wrote that some 8 years ago. And the first sentence of my book of fighting Hamas was, for the purpose of this book, Hamas is a metaphor for all Palestinian terror and anti-Semitism. If you want any information, if you want the background, in order to be a truth warrior in the information war for Israel, get yourself a copy of either Israel Reclaiming the Narrative or Fighting Hamas, BDS and Anti-Semitism, or follow me on my social media, or copy this video, take it and use the information I give you in order to establish the high ground, the moral high ground for Israel in our war, not only against a deviant Palestinian virus called Hamas, but also the Palestinians themselves as represented in the list I've given you. This is Barry Shaw, The View from Israel.
אנחנו מכריזים בזאת